Welcome to the May 20th OpenZFS production user call. We have Andrew, Jan, Mark, Bayram, Rob, Zombcoder, and myself, Michael, so far. And Rob, I understand you've been working on some development work. What do you have to share?
Hello. Yeah, mostly a lot of background work. So not stuff you'll see anything about. I mean, you'll see it in the code, but it won't show anything. I've been refactoring most of the ZAP code. So ZAP's being the internal KV store that is used for file system directories and for also for property lists and all that sort of stuff. Um, the code is very, very, very old. In fact, I don't really think it's been touched a whole lot since the original Solaris code. Um, and I want to find out more about the history. And I am getting around to, as in, I remember always remember at least once a day, but I remember at the wrong times to email Matt Aarons and ask about some curious comments in the code, which are clearly like these comments were not updated when a particular change was made, but that change was made before the Open Solaris drop that included ZFS. So it's interesting to sort of see words like ZDR that do not appear anywhere else in the code and think, okay, there was a before time where this thing was not used for anything or everything. But anyway, there is clear evidence that at the very last minute, some changes were shoehorned in and that's made that whole thing sort of a structural kind of nightmare, and that's probably why no one's really done much hacking in that area lately. So anyway, I've been refactoring that into a very nice sort of modular thing. I don't know how many people know that. Okay, I just realized how much I'm rambling. So
Please ramble.
you're gonna have to yell
You're
in
fine.
if I want off.
Keep it
But anyway,
coming.
um, so the ZAP is this KV subsystem, and there are two on disk formats for zaps. There is micro zap and fat zap. And micro zap is basically is like the small high speed version. Um, it it's guaranteed to fit within one ZFS block, and it has limitations like I say, it's a key value store, but it has limitations like the key can be no longer than 50 bytes. And the value always has to be a uint 64, so a 64-bit integer. Um, this these restrictions make it mean that most property lists never grow outside of being a microzap, and most directories don't grow past it unless you use really long file names or unless you get over about, I think, with standard block sizes around 2000 entries. So, um, a fairly boring directory with only, just a boring amount of files in it, well, is probably a microzap, and it doesn't grow to a fat zap until afterwards. The moment it blows any kind of limits, there's a couple of other limits, then it gets converted to a fat zap, which is basically this big multi-block hash table. Um, and that, for anyone who's done performance testing with directories, will find that, oh, directory stuff gets a lot slower once I get past 2000, about 2000 files. That's why. Um, so these are all, you know, reasonable and sort of defensible things, but it looks like in the code, microzaps were kind of slammed in front of fat zaps. Like there was only fat zap originally, and someone went, "Oh, we need the fast version, so we'll route everything through microzaps, and it can decide whether to pass that on to the fat zap calls or do it itself or convert it in place." So it's very entangled. What the thing I want to do came out of a couple of things. One, that there is a case normalization feature in ZFS. This is the there is there is a case normalization or a normalization or something like that property, which basically decides how to compare file names, how to store and how to compare file names. So it's like for like uh, non-ASCII uh, file names, like Unicode file names, because often there is, once you get into all that world, you can't do a byte for byte comparison to decide if two names are the same. So
It
if I,
also
sorry, go,
it also comes up if I believe probably comes up if you're doing uh, case insensitive, which is a
yes,
mode you can set, particularly
yeah,
for which is particularly useful when dealing with Windows for
yeah,
obvious reasons.
yep. It's yes, that was all I was going to mention, and yeah, it's the same
Sorry.
mechanism. They work together to say, how do I compare these? There is also interestingly, there's a case norm mode called mixed, which is
Yep.
uh very unclearly defined. Not undefined, but it is something like the it allow how's it go? It allows the directory to store. You could have three versions of a file name: the uppercase, the lowercase, and like a mixed case, and it allows it to store all three of those, and they can be recalled on demand. But if you ask for just one, you get the canonical form. It's a slightly in between format, but apparently it's needed to support particular Windows modes correctly. And
In theory, Windows allows you to Windows will act as if it's caseless, but will still retain the case information most of the
yeah,
time, and it's to deal
Case
with that.
preserving, not case insensitive.
it's it's not
Yeah,
quite the same. Mixed is not quite the same as case preserving. It's something slightly different, but it's all in that realm.
it's
I'm,
really it's a really weird case, and it's
mm,
one that in practice I found weird enough that I didn't use it for my Windows stuff.
yeah. Well, at the very least, we have tests in the test suite for it that have been failing for mm, since about 2013, I think. As in they fail in every run, and then the test runner knows to ignore those failures. So,
Right?
um, and the where this came from is I started looking into it and rapidly ended up in the ZAP code and realized I had no confidence in my ability to make any changes and not break everything. Because we didn't have, we have tests around, uh, oh God, I'm just tangenting all over the place here.
Please.
The test suite is like a functional or integration test suite, as in it runs ZFS commands at the top, and it knows it has a kernel at the back, and it does POSIX file system stuff, and it makes sure that the things that happen at the user space level, at the application level, do the right thing. There's very little that tests the internals um, uh, directly. So if you for things that for things in the code that are not directly wired to some kind of function that is exposed to user space, um, yeah, either through the file system or through the tools, you kind of have to write a test that you know will exercise something in a particular way, and then sometimes poke around it raw on disk or whatever, or look for evidence that the thing must have happened. And sometimes we use ZDB for that, and sometimes we have magic case stats for that, and sometimes it's crazy. So I thought, okay, I need to do some. I need to be able to play with normalization and that sort of thing, but I don't even know what this mode kind of does. So I want to be able to play around and make sure I'm not breaking anything else. And we almost certainly don't have test coverage for a whole bunch of stuff, but also things like what happens when do micro zaps and fat zaps, when the micro zap's not growing into a fat zap, do they perform the same? Have I broken one but not the other, in ways I wouldn't necessarily know. And then the other thing I want to do is, Michael, I love watching these words appear and thinking, wow, this is just turning it into actual something, some structured thought. But anyway,
Proto
the other thing
documentation, and no, this is not AI. This is MD.
yes, very much official intelligence. Yes, fissile.
Yes.
I want to play with that anyway.
Yes.
I've got a long hard drive later today, so I'll
Mm.
mess around with that. I what I want to look at is more efficient Zap storage options, because fat zaps basically break every key and every value up into 21 byte chunks so that we can have a 24 byte entry. Basically, on disk, they are an array of 24 byte things. And it's like 1 byte of flags, 21 bytes of data, and 2 bytes of pointer to the next chunk. So they're very, very flexible, but that means that every file name, it just gets split up into these things, and then it's this hash table thing, and it's sort of all this sort of stuff. And I figure there are, like, this hurts. This hurts performance in a lot of ways. And I want to be able to play with special case version of things. Like, if you have an object store, like if you are doing like a content addressable store where every file name is just like the SHA-1 hash, okay, then and maybe we can detect that all your file names are 40 characters, and there will never be a collision. So maybe you can configure the ZAP to store that more efficiently. Or for like the dedupe table, where the key is 320 bytes and always 320 bytes, and the lookup is always done on the first UINT64, maybe you can adjust that to store that more efficiently, make lookups more efficiently. But also, maybe there's different modes you want. Like, if you have all of these, we're assuming Zap's full of, hundreds of thousands, millions of entries. If you have a directory that is full of stuff, but you are mostly doing, like random access lookups, there are more efficient ways to store that. But if you are doing a lot of appends, then there are more efficient ways to store that. So optimizing for those particular use cases. And then there's a thing, well, okay, but a directory needs to support all of these things. Maybe it could store multiple forms. Maybe it could switch back and forth between them. So there's all these things I want to play with around apps. I don't know if any of it will come to fruition, but I figure, I want to be able to do a lot better there. So
On that point, Jan had a quick question. If he creates a 51-byte file name in a directory, does it indeed force to a fat zap?
yep, it'll immediately grow to a fat zap, and if you delete that file, it will not ungrow. It will be
Oh,
fat
good to
zap
know.
forever.
Is there a
That
reason
would
to
have been my second
ungrow and
question.
reclaim? If that makes
Sorry,
sense. I'm sorry, we
two
both
people
spoke at
spoke.
the same time. Yes. Just to jump in, could there be an operation that does reclaiming on smaller than fat zaps, or is that crazy talk?
I would like to have that. It has been mooted before. It's hard to do. It's easy to go from limited to unlimited. It's harder to go back. But
Fair enough.
yes, I would like to be able to do that.
Okay, Jan,
And
you had something
sorry,
that I spoke
what
over.
was your question?
Jan, you have the floor if you want. Okay, maybe we covered it. Cool.
Okay.
Continue.
Yeah.
Jump in.
So anyway, what I've been doing is refactoring all that code, and basically turning it into a nicely layered, the way you would imagine like the object-oriented vtable kind of concept of that. There is a dispatch layer and a vtable for microzaps and a vtable for fat zaps, and it dispatches down to the right thing and whatever. And then going with that, I have been writing a unit test framework for ZFS broadly, which is now in a PR. That my hope is to make it, my hope is to make it easier to write unit tests rather than just integration tests. So I can actually test all the weird little things that Zaps can do. So yeah, I have a PR in with just the basics. I've had like 5 or 6 PRs on this thing in the last couple of weeks. So they're all upstreamed. But the test suite is just starting, but it means we can do things like, and now I have to do a very quick hunt. I have a test suite that has like 70 tests now just for the Zap internals. And I was building all these things alongside doing that refactor so that to sort of building them all together, but to sort of prove to myself that, oh, actually, all my refactoring is not breaking things either. So, yeah, that's kind of what I'm up to. That's been a lot of my time, but
How much of that
that
has
is
changed the behavior or in the refactor? Like, have you
not.
added improvements or is it purely cleanup?
This is just cleanup. I do not want to change any behavior until I can confirm that I'm not breaking other behavior.
Absolutely. No,
Um,
and it's not, for lack of a better term, sexy for companies to say, hey, this would be so much easier to read if we just
no,
spent N number of hours, days, weeks,
yeah.
months cleaning it up and making it pretty for the future. Because hey, no, they want new features. Gist file, is it what are we looking at?
This is just the output from the full test suite. This is not
Oh,
yet
nice.
in a
Okay,
PR or
great.
anything,
Oh yeah,
but
fantastic.
and it runs in, well, no time at all.
Hmm.
Um, so it's a really, I mean, like unit testing is not a new concept, but it's one that we have not had very much of. And the I guess the other takeaway from all this is like hopefully now we can have a structure where people could start to more confidently make improvements in ZFS without even needing to run the full test suite, without even needing to set it up, by being able to just go, cool, I make a change and I run the test program. And so this is the kind of thing that user space refactoring more generally gives, like, this some stuff I did to make sure threads work a little better in user space. This makes it this uses that in some ways. So just little bits and pieces. So it's all general uplift. Anyway,
Nice, great.
that was a lot of noise for sort of towards one thing. But anyway, my intent after this is, assuming I get all this upstreamed, is yeah, to have a platform to keep playing with Zaps with, to test to have good tests around some other subsystems that aren't so well tested. The system attributes area, so the thing that stores all your file attributes and extended attributes and bits and pieces, that's very complex and not amenable to change in the same way. And I think we could do a good set of tests around that. Possibly around the stream sending, receiving uh stuff. I mean, eventually everything, but a lot of things are going to need a fair amount of refactoring to make them have a clean enough API to be amenable to this sort of testing. So I've tried to design the whole edifice that um it doesn't uh, it doesn't require you to make changes that would affect like performance or operational use or that sort of thing. You might have to make some changes, but not spend something for it. So anyway,
Well, as we say
that's
around here, you're doing Rod's work. Questions for Rob. And from our conversations, I understand this to be purely the groundwork for, say, user space ZFS.
Yeah, yes. I mean, yes and no. Um, for good user space ZFS, for good any kind of ZFS.
Yes.
Basically, I mean, I have so many, like possible end goals and all the little all the connections between the pieces. But I would like, I would like us to get to the point where a port to a new platform, even user space, is not, is only moderately difficult, not nightmarishly difficult, not so difficult that we have to have multiple years of conversations about it. And part of doing that is making sure that, we have nice clean code structure and abstractions that make sense and people that can, don't have to build the entire, support layer, like make sure all the thread interfaces and the mutexes and everything and integrate into their kernel and convert for their particular block layer and that's this all at the same time. That's a very big undertaking, particularly for some, because anyone who knows enough ZFS to actually be able to tackle that eyes open is busy on other stuff. And anyone
Right.
who might just be curious, kind of, so to be able to say, cool, I will just grab the code and I will get it compiling on my, you know, operating system, whatever that is. And then I just run the tests that are right here that were compiled with it and see if they work. That's a big lift.
So
So
test at
that's
every
the kind
step, I
of,
guess.
yeah. Oh,
That makes sense.
so it's not unrelated.
Hmm.
In a program of works kind of way, I think to some degree, because user space ZFS still doesn't have a specific goal. So I'm mostly doing things that are going to help no matter what.
To that theme, once upon a time, Apple had a no new features release, and I kind of wish every open source project and operating system would maybe do that from time to time. Just say, hey, okay, let's clean up those open tickets. Let's streamline those rough edges. Let's just make it not focus on the new and exciting, but just sort of focus on the
Mm,
long haul. And I'm so glad you're able to do this.
yeah.
And able
It's
is a very complex word insofar as there's time, there's funding, there's ability, there's knowledge, there's knowing who to talk to. So yes, thank you, Rob.
I mean, if we're gonna say who, then I'm not gonna I'm not gonna run the company line too much, but TrueNAS are paying me now, and I pretty much have leave to just keep ZFS working nicely and that sort of thing. So whatever you may think of the product or the people, that at least they're being good open source people. So anyway,
Uh,
um,
I trust Mav is still there, who has absolutely
yeah,
moved mountains over the years for performance,
oh
for
yeah,
everything, for bug finding, for you name it. So that the two of you is
yep,
just two of you grinding away in these different corners is
yep,
fantastic, priceless,
and
awesome.
also
So yes, thank you, thank you, thank you.
yep, Mav and Amir, who
Oh, okay.
if you spend time on the on the in some darker corners of the issue tracker, you see Amir. He's
Yeah,
very
great.
good with the NFS stuff and that sort of thing.
Fantastic.
Um, I see some questions. Do you want me to
Yeah,
just
sure. Just Jan
fire
had a
up?
question like, hey, do we have good early, what were they even, SCCS or something? I mean, what did Sun use back in the day? I thought they had some oddball tracking contraption and,
Yeah, we only have the Illumos history, and that goes back to the first Open Solaris releases. So we don't have before Open Solaris was uh so released, which was the first open source ZFS drop. And
so,
like in this case, this stuff was already there. Um, the ZAP layer has not fundamentally changed. So for anything before that, it it doesn't exist. There are little bits that you can get from some of the old like internal engineering bug tracker from Sun is available. But yeah, there's a lot of the early code history and also a lot of the as I understand a lot of stuff at Sun, they used to have like a essentially code review meetings and sort of engineering design overview meetings, and none which were like quite well documented internally. As best I know, like
Hmm.
none of that is public.
I,
So and I think there is probably a lot of good history in those decisions, that sort of thing.
I
Uh,
want to I want to say back in the Sundays, nothing got in unless it was at least approved by three people.
yeah.
They were really quite fantastic about that.
Mm, yeah. Yeah,
right,
they did a
but
good job of that stuff. So
open
I'd be interested. Sorry, go on.
source was pretty much a unified dump over the wall, and we all have to work from there, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Uh,
Um, so
During
yeah,
the
so sorry, go.
during the Sundays, there was a lot of cross interaction for things. Um, as soon as Oracle took over, it became a dump over the wall pretty much.
Yeah, this is yeah. But like I said, on this one, yeah, like the early history is pretty good. There are a couple of things that just go back to, a singular commit. And the commit messages do not have, well, they don't really have commit messages. They just have references to internal ticket numbers. So, um, understanding the why of some very early stuff is uh challenging. So yeah, so I'm gonna email Matt about that as
hmm.
soon as I get a chance. Um, and
Uh,
I should probably try and I just as we're talking about it, I'm like maybe I'll try and ping someone inside Oracle who I have in mind and
cool.
ask if any of that very old design stuff is available. Then I say no.
Indeed.
Um,
Uh, Jan, you had just a proposal.
I,
Would an unsorted key value store be the right thing in this situation?
Now that's what we have. I'm
Right.
surprised that we only have an unsorted key value store. So we always have to sort things later if we need sorted output or
uh,
what.
Yeah, we generally don't sort. It's an on-disk hash table. So
Hmm?
we compute it's an on-disk hash table. So we compute a hash from the key and then jump to the place that we want.
Sure,
It's
that's
a,
how simple hash table works.
it's how what works, sorry?
That's how a hash table works.
Yeah, so it's literally what it is. So it's not stored. Well, I mean, I suppose it's stored unsorted, but yeah, most things don't most POSIX things don't actually sort. Like when you do a iterate over a directory or whatever, there's no, that's not sorted, the response, and we mostly don't sort things at that layer. Um, so
Cool.
That
And,
readir returns files out of in hash key order.
uh, reader technically returns things in arbitrary order.
Yeah, but
People,
pretty stable
Pro,
unless you
yeah,
modify the
pro,
directory.
we go through some efforts elsewhere to keep that in a vague order. Redo is one of the hardest things to implement,
hmm,
but I mean,
Get
all
the ends the system call. No, the readir function may do some sorting, deduplication for you. Ugly BSD fast file system, union mount behavior. There are corner cases there where
mm,
functions like FTS have sorting and deduplication of duplicate names
yeah,
created by union mounts and so on.
hmm.
But those are UFS specific
yeah,
hacks in userland because what the kernel provides the union mounted UFS is not pretty
mm,
because you
So,
can actually get the same file returned twice and so on.
yep,
hmm.
Yeah,
Zombocator had a question about the
yeah,
transition from microzap to fat zap. Do you mean in the current code or future ideas?
yeah. No, in the current code, it's a it's a full rewrite. Um, but microzap contents is small enough that uh effectively the upgrade path is we already have the basically we have the contents in memory in a B tree as well as on disk. So we just it's only a single block on disk for a microzap. So we basically we throw it away. Um we have the contents in memory, we zero the block. Um we write the FATZAP header and pointer table and housekeeping into the top block, and then we run through the in-memory B tree and just insert the whole lot into the new ZAP. Um,
Is it capital M, capital ZAP, or micro underscore, or something else entirely? We've talked about micro zaps and fat zaps, but I don't know how to
um,
type it.
the way you've written it is the way I write it.
Well, Coder wrote the camel case, and I wrote, I think, just two
hmm.
words. So which would you prefer if you were to go back over these
um,
notes and not cringe?
I'm just looking for the other one. I wouldn't write it with an underscore.
Okay.
I've seen it with a space in the middle. I've seen it with all lowercase.
Okay.
Um, Also, like I say, the comments are very old, so
Yeah,
I
okay,
don't think
cool.
people know this. Um,
If someone wants to edit the doc, it is wide open to make it beautiful and
yeah.
consistent and accurate for history. Because let's move on from that little spelling question.
I'm, I'm
Yes, Jan.
still a bit surprised we have data in a B tree in memory, but then put it in a
Oh
hash
no,
table on disk so that you now have to do an additional indirection to touch two blocks for a single key. Is
the B tree is only for the Microsoft to FATSAP transition. It's just in memory.
Oh, it's
Most of the time,
oh,
we
temporary.
okay. It's a
yeah we
temporary
don't
data structure. Okay.
yeah. And the reason it's hash table on disk is because we can basically we hold the header block. Well, it's a metadata block, so it's in the debuff cache or it's in the arc most of the time.
Hmm?
Um, and then that has a bunch of pointers into the other data blocks all the way through the ZAP. So we can quickly, we compute the hash, do a lookup in the header block, which we already have, and then we can request um, the data block from the ZAP object for that lookup because it may not be in the arc right now. Um,
Okay.
So that's most of the reason for the hash table because not that you couldn't do it with a B tree, but B tree you tend to have to do a little more. Um, as it gets bigger, there can be more more indirections. Um,
Yeah, of course. I was thinking
so
mostly of a B plus tree, but okay. Uh, the
I
other
would like
thing, do you?
these are the kind of things that I want to play with, and I firmly believe that people have mostly not because it's almost impossible to know where to put the code. Yeah,
On a
so
on a hopefully more short-term note, do you plan to add support for downgrading from FAT ZAP back to microzap?
Um, I don't plan to do anything, but it is something I'd like to look at because what it would basically mean is that the FATSAP would need to be able would basically need to keep statistics of what it's currently storing. I don't want to scan every single sorry, it already does store a lot of statistics. There's sort of key usage stuff, but basically I don't want to have to do a scan to see is there anything in this FATZAP that will not fit into a microzap. Um,
So you will have to keep a count of violations, and whenever you remove a key, you
Yeah.
check, was it this one of the ones which
Yeah.
violated this constraint, and when all the counters reach 0, you could downgrade.
Effectively, something like that.
Could that be an
Um,
offline process for the afternoon or weekend? You're just gonna let it
Oh yeah,
optimize,
look, I don't think it's hard to do. I mean,
right?
look, there is ZAP optimization stuff. Like we can tell pretty quickly, in the initial thing, it's like if it's over, 2000 odd keys, then it's a no, right?
Yeah.
Um, it might be a little easier these days with ZAP shrink available.
Oh,
So,
what does shrink do if not that?
so ZAP shrink is an internal one of the few ZAP changes that have happened.
Hmm.
But that was introduced in 2.3, and basically what that does is if it detects that, so a fat zap structurally is just the first block. They're all in one object. The first block of the object is housekeeping, the header. And then there is potentially a pointer table block, and then there are leaf blocks, so which form the actual data. This is the just endless array of 24-byte things. When we detect the zap shrink is when we detect that we have emptied a data block entirely, like it is empty, it has no valid entries, or well, it has no valid chunks. Then we automatically basically collapse that empty block. So it can help with some space reclamation. It doesn't, we can't yet, a highly fragmented, like you've removed every second entry, we can't yet collapse that, but we can collapse whole blocks. So what that does mean is that we do know that, like if you've been removing enough entries such that you are now in sort of a ballpark where you could downgrade to a micro zap. There's probably not too many blocks to actually scan because we've probably collapsed a good chunk of them. So it might even not be that big a deal anymore.
Cool.
But yes, being able to, I do want to put once I have the whole new sort of internal API sorted, I do want to. It's going to need an upgrade path from microzap to fatzap, but I would, if I possibly can, I want to structure that as sort of a cross, like an arbitrary convert from this type to that type, if they have matching constraints kind of API, because as soon as I add another one, I'm going to need a way to move between them or to not move between them or whatever. So that is an area that I will need to play with. I don't know what's feasible, but so I want the stage set so I can play with those things.
Yeah, amen. Other questions for Rob? Jan and I have been kind of loud. It's your call, not mine. That is exciting. And short of reviewing the reviews and PRs, how can people help?
Um, Not really a lot at the
Okay.
moment. I mean, unless you are in the mood to do like it's pretty much this is sort of developer inside baseball stuff. Um, so yeah, so if you want to play with the code, if you want to shoehorn a different format in or something, but apart from that, you shouldn't notice
Yeah.
anything right now.
About tests, is it in any way easier for someone to jump in and make a little test based on the plumbing you've done?
Yeah. Yes.
Could you please document that such that, because as I see it, based on the conversations at the summit, the test suite is one of the lowest hanging fruits for sort of borderline developer adjacent people to hop in and do something of value because It's like, hey, I simulated my workload here. Maybe you'll benefit, kind of thing, without having to know the ZAP intricacies.
So hang on, I'm just finding my windows because I'm lost. But yes, this is the PR for the test infrastructure,
Yes,
and that
please.
has a part of the PR is documentation on how to use the bloody thing.
Ooh,
So
yes, test. Uh, oh, that's
um,
accurate. I'll go with the test instruction PR with usage. Let's take a look. Oh, maybe that's a separate. Oh, yes, copy. This.
I mean, I've been working on it for weeks, but I only posted it last night. So
Oh, right, perfect
um,
timing. Yay.
um
Usage. What I do? Hold on, I hit the page up, page down. I want a colon. Thank you very much. Sorry. Okay. Boom. So let's see. You've got unit test framework, and I'm guessing would that README be this guy?
yeah.
Cool. Sweet. Unit tests. Yes, please. Make unit. Sanity. That's a very important technical word term.
Yeah, does the test
Beautiful.
infrastructure work?
Oh, lovely. Guidance for test, right? Oh, yes, yes, please. Okay. That kind of thing. That came up on an earlier call today of just like, hey, documentation is really important, but wow, it can be painful. So yeah, love it. Um, I'll even make that a cool
One of the
shoot
things
some
it
bullets here. Yes.
one of the things it
Oof,
does, I don't have this online anywhere, so I'll just put a screenshot in.
sure.
What's the best way to put a screenshot in? Not in
Just
the Zoom chat. In the
no,
Zoom chat
literally
or in
just
the
paste
doc?
it in the doc. This doc is your doc. This doc is my
Okay.
doc. This doc is so yeah, just plop it
Uh,
right in there and I can format away from there.
uh, sorry, my arm is as I stare at. All right, so I think I've got a cursor now. Great. So I
Oh,
am
that's a
not good
plus. It's
at Google Docs. Let's see. Upload from computer. Here we go. We're doing it live.
and it does
We're doing
support
it
paste
live.
if you have it in an appropriate buffer, like selected in perhaps an image editor or
Okay.
viewer and just plop. Yay! Look at
Does that
that.
work?
Yes, it's
That's
beautiful.
so again, code coverage is test coverage. So this is for the big test suite
Mm.
for Zaps. That is that is the coverage for the source file. So in the real thing, you can click on those and it'll show you
Hmm.
the tests ran down these bits of the code. So anything that's any line, literally it shows the source listing. So any lines of
Wow.
code that are marked red, um, are like your test did not ever run this line of code. So you can sort of go, maybe I'd like to write a test for that. Anyway, coverage data is not new, but it's a pain in the ass to actually generate for C programs. So it's documented in there. There is a target, make unit coverage, and it will spit out this. It'll spit out a HTML link at the end, and you click on it, and then you can poke around and see what your test actually covers. So again, trying to make it easy. I'm tired of this
Brilliant.
nonsense where it's just inscrutable what's actually happening in the tools. Like,
Yeah, but I totally get it that a vendor needs a product out the door rather than, well, nicety, because you might never have insights into the sausage factory of their development salt mine and such is life. So again, thank you for giving this
mm,
attention. Ah, this is
mm.
awesome.
So I hope it will let people do all sorts of interesting things.
Great. Love it. Fantastic. And this is the kind of thing that could just open, well, should open so many doors over time. Like, well, oh, by the way, now that it's easy to do thing A, thing B, C, and D are much easier by definition. Brilliant. Brilliant. The links are in there. I've tried to make this pretty. Hopefully people catch the recording and are inspired to build on your shoulders, Resident Giant. Other questions for Rob?
Not too hard. My shoulders hurt. Never mind.
But I'm pumped. So, Antranig was going to jump in with a nifty fix he came up with, which for what I thought was a slow import, and he found that the timeouts were to blame. He is not present to join, so such is life. I'll just punch through these links. A colleague found this on Reddit. It is MFA for ZFS on FreeBSD and Linux systems, multi-factor authentication, I guess, with a cute logo. Oh no, do I smell AI? Is
Yes.
a hardened ZFS dataset interactive working two-factor authentication for sensitive services on FreeBSD with Linux compatibility built in, whatever that means. MIT license. The idea is simple. Blah, 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 blah. Nothing protected at boot. Yes, that's kind of the chicken and egg issue of, oh, I want everything encrypted, but oh, oops, it rebooted and oh no. So, oh, FIDO appliance is, hello, Pavel, is this dependent on your product? I don't know.
I mean, the trick here is that OpenZFS can read the key material from standard in, so anything which can prompt you for something and then emit a key works.
Okay.
So it's easy. You can have something like the key file encrypted to multiple recipients with GNU-PG. Not that you should be using GNU-PG anymore, but you get the idea. And anyone who can decrypt the key file and pipe it into a ZFS load key can unload it. Of course,
Okay.
that's usual. You can't protect against that with disk encryption.
Right. And how do you interpret the sentence? Is that once decrypted? Is that just kind of saying, hey, obviously, if it's all keys are loaded and things are mounted, this doesn't help, or am I misreading this?
No, that's what it means.
That's what it means. Okay. I was like,
If something
you get pwned while the key material is available, your key material is compromised.
fair enough. Okay.
we
have a key
happily
to your
hold
house.
we unapologetically have the unencrypted key in memory
Yeah.
while your data set is encrypted.
Fair enough.
There is no digital restriction management bullshit lie that you try to, oh, we have a secure enclave for implemented with a rootkit or something. No, it's file system, you can detrace it.
Cool. There's that link. It's in the doc. Hey, girl.
No, these tools are good. We often get asked for we often get asked for basically like key management, some kind of key management system. Mostly because like Lux, so like
because
the
Lux
Linux,
has one on Linux,
yeah, Lux has one, and people are like, oh, ZFS should do this sort of thing, and it's like, no, we have the low level facility to load your key in, to load the correct key into the kernel to decrypt the thing. There is no reason that the rest cannot be done with additional tooling. And yeah, like load key does not just read from a file or standard in, it can reach out to the network. You can load key from a HTTPS source and that sort of thing. So you can.
Here's a question.
What, you mean like do things modularly? Come on. Why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
Bingo.
Right now, I don't know if it's still enabled, but for a while in the FreeBSD installer, it would ask you if you wanted to enable ZFS encryption of per user home datasets.
Directories, yeah.
Which is a glorious foot gun because if you try to log in via SSH, your authorized key file is still encrypted.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Exactly. So by default, you don't even get a chance to get in, especially as root, because even if you have a key file in your home directory, it's alright, it's still encrypted, which means your system is basically useless because it won't even fail hard if you log in with a password. It will just not really work because you will see the empty read-only directory in, as a placeholder for the not yet decrypted dataset.
Okay.
To make it more usable, we would have to do something a bit different, use kind of prompt for the key. So yeah, and it's really annoying with ZFS and SSH for a remote system. It kind of works for a local system because we do have an undocumented or barely documented um, PAM module to handle the automatic loading of the key if it is equal to the user password at least. But enabling dataset encryption did not, at least in 15.0, enable this PAM module.
I
So you
see.
ended up
Oops.
with
Okay.
so you could SSH in or log in with a password, and then you have to know that you have to load the key. But for that you have to be privileged. So yeah.
Okay. Good to
Um,
know.
so it has to happen as part of PAM session setup. It's possible to do for a laptop or something like that, so that your laptop can boot unattended and your home gear gets decrypted the moment you log in via, I don't know, your access, VM or whatever you're using for Wayland. If it's set up a PAM session, you can make it happen. For remote
Okay.
systems with SSH public key authentication, we don't have a good story there. I think in theory you could use the SSH key for decryption of some kind of credential stored on the client, which basically means that now the client has the decryption key on it, which is also not what you want. In this case, you probably want some kind of boot attestation and central management for bigger fleet, but yeah,
Yes,
that's
thank you. Cool.
a giant project.
I look forward to your talk on the subject. Um, Chris Seibenman posted this about this object mapping, perhaps as non-root. I'm trying to make sense of it. Rob, do you understand what's going on here? And there was mention of lib ZFS. Take a drink.
So yeah, I read that blog article.
Yeah.
What happens
I'm
here is that sometimes you want to go from inode numbers or object ID to back to a path, which you can do relatively efficiently on ZFS because each object stores the probable name of its parent and the object ID of its parent, I think. So you can walk up, verify that this is the int is valid, and then rebuild the path by going from the bottom to the top of the path.
Ah,
That's what ZFS diff does to go from an object to a path to print. There's an ioctl, this example command, which does not get installed on previously on other platforms, as far as I know, is in the OpenZFS sources, but it's kind of treated as a developer tool, which does not get installed. And it takes the ID of the pool, not the name. So first you have to map the pool to an ID, and then yeah, so it needs a wrapper script to be human friendly.
does that sound right, Rob? Interesting territory.
yes, that is all right, and that is installed on standard Linux packaging for ZFS.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, but it's not a FreeBSD.
oh, okay. I don't
Maybe you should
I,
change that.
That would be for FreeBSD to change. The one that comes with
Yeah,
FreeBSD
exactly.
is all. Oh, right. Sorry, I wasn't. If you said, I thought you said maybe you should change that, meaning me.
You know, we as in we were FreeBSD people,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
Yeah.
while
But
edit maybe put in a little pull request to do the lookup within the command so that you don't have to look up the current data set first. Or pull.
I will say that tool is probably not perfect in all
Hmm.
cases,
No,
particularly when hard links get involved. If we've got, I mean,
in that case, the mapping is not unique, but
yeah,
if you can give the user one name,
we only currently track the most recently created hard link.
so
I
what
mean,
happens if that hard
sorry,
link
all the
gets
hard links
removed?
work. That's the only backlink we uh trying to keep because it's
So
it's
if
complicated.
I create a file, I create a hard link to it and remove the hard link, what
Mm.
happens? Does the reverse name hint become unusable and you have to do a linear scan or what?
I can't remember. I did some work on it because I did some work with Jürgen a little while ago, a couple of years ago, just as an experiment because on macOS there is a file system call you can make that will give you all of the names associated with a file. And he was like, "How would I implement this?" And I went, "Well, I
Uh,
have an idea, but and I implemented it in a weekend, but I didn't love it." And he was like, "Yeah, that's
uh,
kind of nonsense. We're not doing that." And I went, "Yeah, I'll just
if
leave
I
it there." But now I
remember
want to,
correctly, the reason macOS can kind of do that is because HFS Plus historically stored paths, not inodes. It had a file handle and it had a path, and basically everything go through this key to file record mapping in a B tree every time.
yeah,
And so they had a slower, more levels of indirection lookup, and so they could do that mapping.
yep,
And for a desktop focused file system, having these persistent file IDs, which were not reused, was really useful because then you could have them in aliases, which were kind of the user space symlink of macOS. And these aliases were so reliable that macOS could even tell you after you move the file to which file system ID under which new handle you can probably re-resolve that name. So alias files on AFP network shares used to be amazing for users because files could be renamed and moved between network shares, and the alias would just chase down the movement chain because the file system would store these hints to follow, and users loved it, but file system implementers hated it with a burning passion of thousand suns.
Righty then.
yep. Um, I'll just put a link in the doc for
I
people who
see
would
that.
like to read more about that. That's Jürgen, my
I
chat from a
yes.
couple of years ago where we and a possible way to do that tracking, which was fun, and that's for
For the annals. Speaking of Jorgen, so I forgot to mention that I've seen a bunch of like just teasers about VSS volume shadow copy support and Hyper-V support. So I sense he might have a big Windows release coming up. And yes, called it. Yes, the Hyper-V followed by VSS. I have not talked to him in a while. I hope he's doing great. I don't know if he made it to yesterday's developer call. I spaced it. Long story. It conflicts with the jails call. Anywho, ARM64, hello. So yes, he's been busy. So do follow along there. on the Fediverse. And one thing that crossed my desk this morning was Eva, who's been periodically dropping in, has an updated vision from 6 hours ago on a massive scale out ZFS project that she can best represent. So here's the link, and you are welcome to do with that as you please at this point until she explains it. It does depend on some pretty high-end hardware, but I'm sure there are things that can benefit mortals and peasants. Purpose. The 8 years of spending corpus of the project. I will file this in above my pay grade, but I hope she can join and explain it. She was hoping to, but I think by releasing at that hour, she probably took the day off a bit. So anyway, take a peek at that. It's in the chat and in the doc. And I do have a bunch of summit things, but they are appropriate for after the call at this point, prior to any formal announcement. Looking at you, Zombo Coder and Mark, and I guess we lost Byram. Any questions for Rob, Jan, others? Mark, what you got? This call is your call, not my call.
I don't have anything at the moment today. I'm just hanging around.
Well,
Just the usual cheeky question about channel programs.
oh yes, that certainly did not come up in his description. Rob, have you seen anything cross any desk on Nifty channel program progress, etc.?
Nope, I have not.
No worries.
Though I have learned that it is channel programs are quite extensively used in TrueNAS's middleware. So that's
Oh, that's
the thing
good to
they've
know.
done.
Huh.
I
Okay.
can mention it because it's all open source and
Sure.
GitHub.
Right.
But yeah, I was like, okay, so it will be a rich vein for me to mine at some point.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's only
That's all
one
I've
of
got.
you, so at the very moment we are kind of at the mercy of what you and what do they call it? Your developer velocity can
But
handle.
while TrueNAS is not very live right now, at least for FreeBSD users anymore, it's still an interesting resource to look at with channel programs, just to learn some patterns about what people did with them.
Yeah.
And maybe yes, something which at least rocked in production to test and learn from.
Yes. So that said, and this calendar entry failed miserably. Other topics, or shall we call it good? And if, at least do Rob and perhaps Jan and others are willing to stick around. Oh, Andrew especially. Let's talk about the summit ever so briefly. So, any final points or questions? 10 after? Do I hear a like? Do I hear a subscribe?
Like and subscribe.
Ooh, in harmony. Beautiful. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Have a great remainder of the week.